In this Nioh 3 video, I want to talk about my hands-on experience with the recent demo. That was a limited time demo, ended back on June 18th. I was able to play through it and beat it, had a blast with it, honestly, overall. And I was very surprised at how well polished it was and how it felt overall to play. And this kind of was, out of nowhere in a sense, because I was not expecting Nioh 3 at all. I was under the impression that after Nioh 2, they were done. But that's not the case. There's more to come in this series. And currently we don't know the exact release date for the game, but it has been confirmed for PC, Steam Deck, and PS5. And this is going to be the first for the Nioh series, I think, that's going to launch day one on both PC and PS5, because previous games, Nioh 1 and 2, they launched as PlayStation exclusives and then dropped on PC like a year or so later. Now, for those wondering, like, well, what is Nioh, or at least what's Nioh 3? Well, I got a brief summary right here for you. Nioh 3 is the upcoming third installment in the Nioh series of action RPGs developed by Team Ninja. It is a Souls-like as well. It's a dark samurai action RPG featuring intense battles against formidable yokai. An open world environment, even though technically it isn't really open world, it's semi-open world, or open zoned more so is probably the right term, not open world. And offers the option to switch between samurai and ninja combat styles. The game is currently scheduled for release in early 2026 for PS5 and PC via Steam. So let's get this out of the way too, for everybody wondering here. They do switch some things up a little bit, but honestly, it plays like more Nioh. So if you're already a fan of this series and just how the gameplay is, you're going to get really more of that. A key difference here is just they have the combat styles to sort of separate samurai and ninja. Now, technically, they've always had this in the previous two games. It's just they didn't have it split in the way it is now to be kind of more optimized in that matter, or be more optional. But typically, when it came to builds, you're either building a variety of builds built around like a samurai style or a ninja style. Something else they added in this one is arts gauge, I believe, because I don't think that was in the previous games, where you can charge up your art gauge and do a strong attack with it. In terms of how you get gear and collect gear, it's pretty much the same as previous games. This game does have an issue, or at least the series has an issue with like giving you a lot of gear that's kind of useless in a sense, or like it doesn't let you get used to, your current armors like that. So that's gonna, make people feel a certain way. Either you're gonna like it or you're not, and it's kind of gonna make you feel the armor you just got is meaningless a little bit later on, because you end up getting either a better version of it or a different set altogether, or parts of a set later, like fairly quickly actually. Regular enemies are as difficult as you would expect. They're not too, difficult in some cases, unless you are fighting too many and get overrun by them. Usually taking them on one at a time is best, or two at a time. Often I find myself, playing more the ninjutsu style than ninja style and sneaking up to enemies to get sneak attacks. And you got, a lot of your returning type of enemy types here, with the human characters having different melee weapons that are Japanese inspired, as well as you got your bowmen. One thing I meant to add as well earlier, when it comes to the different playstyles, Ninja is going to be more of your fast-paced playstyle, not really going to focus on guarding, but rather dodging. And then Samurai is going to be one where you focus more of like guarding, deflecting, essentially kind of be more of like a tank in a sense, and not having as much mobility options. Yokai are here in a variety as well too. They're very challenging yokai, and I argue yokai are a bit more challenging than regular human enemies because their attacks are more ferocious, a bit more unpredictable in some cases, and you gotta get used to them because some of the yokai enemies here are brand new and have not been in previous Nioh games. So I had to relearn not just the regular enemies and returning enemies, but these new enemy types as well too, on top of like these like elite enemies or mini bosses as well. And honestly, I found that a lot of fun to do because that adds to the challenge. You gotta, with every entry, you gotta bring in some new flavor of enemies, new attack patterns, new types of attacks and things like that. You of course have, certain items that are back here making a return, like the spirit stones, the different types of arrows here, your divine branch fragments, your onamoris and things like that, your different, consumable items basically. The cutscenes probably look the best they've ever had before in terms of visuals. but obviously same style. They haven't really changed that. The first boss fight here is actually a lot of fun, and something they decided to do here when it comes to countering the red attacks, which are normally unblockables, is you essentially switch your styles at the right time to do a burst counter with it. So they are bringing back burst counters from Nioh 2, but just in a different way. I think it was done differently in Nioh 2 because you couldn't switch combat styles in Nioh 2 like you can in Nioh 3. And this is going to be, you know, part of your bread and butter type of way of essentially getting some good damage in, you know, working on enemy's ki to get it down. So that way you make them vulnerable and you can get combos in. I mostly played as the ninja, didn't do too much of samurai unless I really needed to get some maybe quick high damage in, because ninja to me was just so much more fun overall and just the fast fluid nature of it. Now something they brought back in a sense but also kind of tweaked a bit here is living artifact. It's called living artifact in this game. In Nioh 1 it was called living weapon, I believe, living weapon. And then in Nioh 2 you use the same mechanic, but it was essentially becoming like a yokai or using yokai abilities. So here it's living artifact, and it more so works like how I would say living weapon did. And whereas, you know, initially early on you're only going to have so much you can do with it, it does give you a boost in damage that you can do to bosses and enemies in general. But obviously if you get hit, you're going to lose it faster and get out of that form. It does go down in terms of timer gradually, but it's going to go down faster if you're getting hit. So you got to be careful still while you're in this form. But it is a lot of fun to pull off and get those heavy hits in. It makes you look so badass. And then after the first boss defeat, there's a cutscene and you go to a new area that's more of like the semi-open world area. In terms of leveling up, you get the samurai like beads or points, same with ninja as well too, to put in to your respective skill trees here. If you're familiar with Nioh 1 and 2 skill trees, this is going to feel very familiar to you, but if you're a new player, not so much. I feel like they need to do a good job or better job at explaining how this works to new players, because for those that never played Nioh 1 and 2, you're kind of going to be lost. It's going to take a bit of time to get used to, and there's probably going to have to be videos made as far as explain it better. Much like any Souls-like game, as well as Nioh specifically, there are going to be certain enemies you'll just want to avoid altogether, or just not even fight enemies all the time. Because honestly, it's just in your best interest not to. There are cool, like, sort of side missions or side quest stuff you can do in like this open zone area where basically there's an enemy like base or whatever you can go to. You defeat the enemies there and they don't respawn again. There's also like a boss or two in the open areas as well you can go and find, kind of almost doing something like what Elden Ring did in terms of like war bosses in a way, where they're optional. You don't have to fight them if you don't want to. You can just keep fighting regular enemies, explore, go down the main path, do not go off the beaten path, things like that. But if you do decide to fight these one or two extra optional bosses, you will get a lot of experience for it. As you can see here, they brought back a boss from the previous Nioh games here, Mizuki, who's not too difficult to fight, honestly. And, you know, in typical fashion, these bosses will take you to the yokai realm, essentially, during the boss fight, so you gotta be careful in that realm, because you typically will have your ki go down faster versus being in the real world. And you more so have the advantage when it's the real world, not the yokai realm. But you can still turn things in your favor in the yokai realm. Demo doesn't give you much to utilize in that regard, but I imagine the full game will have things you can do, abilities, items, etc. Something else that's new is like an exploration level type of thing mechanic they got in here. I guess because they're trying to make this be more bit open world, even though it's not a true open world game. They're trying to take some elements from Rise of the Ronin, obviously, but making this like semi-open world. And if you explore enough, and they encourage you to explore pretty much everywhere, so that way you build up the exploration levels so you get more rewards for that. And there's plenty of like hidden stuff and optional stuff you can find too that's going to help you out, from items to, like I said, like side objectives to get done. And this is all to prepare you for this crazy, like, I don't know, mega shadow realm type of area, I guess is the best way to describe it, where you're just debuffed majorly. And that shadow realm area is called the Crucible. So in the Crucible and lesser crucibles, yokai attacks will be more powerful. Additionally, attacks by enemies will inflict life corrosion, which will temporarily decrease your maximum life. Yeah, like I said, debuffed and punishing. However, the Amrita gauge will fill more quickly here, and thus living the artifact is easier to activate while in these locations. So additionally, yokai summoned by summoning seals will deal extra attack damage. So it's basically, you know, a debuff, but also a little bit of a buff. They try to balance it out in that manner. I found myself not really trying to fight many enemies in the Crucible because of the fact that, yeah, their attacks will be more powerful and do more damage to me, and I lose temporary maximum life, which sucks. You can get it back by attacking enemies in the long run. Like, you do get it back by continuously attack enemies, but it's definitely like a double-edged sword type of situation. You got to be careful. So honestly, from what I learned, it's best to do what you can to level up where you want to before you enter the Crucible, because honestly, you want to get through the Crucible as fast as possible. And essentially the goal of going through the Crucible is exploring it to get to the final boss of the demo, which ends up being this really cool, crazy, like snake boss creature, Jakutsu Baba, which does a mixture of fire and ice damage, as well as regular physical attacks. This boss was really difficult. Took me such a long time to beat, honestly. I forget exactly how long, but so many tries, so many attempts. And as I said, mostly did ninja style instead of samurai, so that's maybe the issue. But once I did learn it, I got it down, and I eventually did defeat it. It just took me a while because I had to, you know, learn the attacks, get the timing down for the burst counters, blocks, etc. Overall, it was a fun boss fight and very cool. Had some really cool moves it did. A grab, you would have to dodge at the right time, or else you just get sucked in by it. And much like previous Nioh demos, you do get a reward for beating it. So since I did beat it on the PS5, I got a reward that's going to be available to me in the full game, basically. I sincerely hope, though, they bring a demo to PC. I'd really love to play this on PC and see how it's optimized and stuff like that. I know Team Ninja is not known for having the best PC ports, unfortunately, at least at launch for their titles, and then they got a patch and fix up later on. I'm hoping they've learned their lesson, though, with this one. But I don't know, because Rise of Ronin still sending a mixed review on Steam right now because of the optimization issues and other issues with that game. So it's worrisome. I want to play it on PC. I'd rather play it on PC over PS5, but I don't know. I may have to get it on PlayStation because, once again, they are not great at their PC ports. And this is supposed to launch, from what I can tell, same day as console and PC. So that's the first time they're doing it where they're dropping them both at the same time. But like I said, hopefully they drop a demo for PC players so that way they can get the, you know, bonus unlock, whatever the heck, for playing a demo. Time will tell, though. We'll see what happens. Although if they do that, that means I'll have to play through the entire same version of the demo just on PC version. But that's okay. All in all, it's more the same Nioh, but with a few new tweaks and added things in there from what I experienced before. There's honestly, there's possibly even more stuff they were changing for the game, for the full game. I just don't know yet because I only got to experience its first, you know, alpha demo. So they'll definitely do at least one, maybe two more on console. I'm not sure for PC though. Hopefully they do. Let me know your thoughts on this, guys, in the comments below. What do you think about this? And hopefully you enjoyed this and found this helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like as well as a subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next video.